All right, everyone, welcome back to episode 54. It's a special episode here on the Coast to Coast podcast because the lists are in for the expansion draft. So we get to speculate a little bit on what our expansion teams are going to look like finally because no other rosters can really be moved. They're all locked at this point, and it's up to Seattle. It's next move Seattle at this point. And I'm joined here today with my main man, Tori. I think it's kind of a special episode. We're doing a late night episode. We don't normally do these kinds. I think maybe be the first, super late. No, probably not the first, but we're doing that. We're getting together.
Latest,
2 days away from Seattle doing the expansion draft, doing their picks as well as the NHL entry draft. But we're going to be strictly, I think, focusing on expansion. In this podcast, might have a couple tangents along the way, but it's been popping off. NHL never stopping. It's great. What are your quick takeaways right off the bat here?
Well, I mean, first off, before we get going, you might notice that my background's a little bit different.
Yeah.
That's obviously because my son was born, so this is the first episode with me being a father. So
congratulations.
That's different. Thank you. A little bit tired as well. So if I say some crazy stuff or if I forget where I'm going on some opinions, I'm just forgive me. And if he starts bawling in one of the middle of our things, we might have to take some breaks. But we'll get this.
I'll find a way to entertain the masses. I'll do like some dances, or we'll talk some other things. But yeah. No, congratulations, man. But, I didn't know if we wanted to break the news on here, so I was gonna let you do that. But big congratulations to you and your missus.
Thank you. So I guess before we get to expansion, the couple topics that I had on my phone here, like I said, we're a little unorganized, but this time I have it on my phone. First thing was Pekka Rinne, officially retired from the NHL. I would assume that he probably signed some sort of, scouting or management position with Nashville. Long time he wanted to retire a Predator, and I'm pretty sure they said to him, like, this is the end of the road with us. Either you can look elsewhere or you can retire and join us in the offices and go from there. And I think that's the option he took. If COVID didn't happen, maybe we aren't here, but nonetheless.
I totally agree. I think at this point, the expansion kind of put them in a corner where, hey, we're not going to protect you, so there's going to be some risk there, all that stuff. And it's that time. They're ready to move on, and they kind of showed that before, and it's, again, not super surprising that this was the case with Rinne.
Absolutely. Second thing is the Duncan Keith trade. Duncan Keith traded from Chicago to Edmonton for Caleb Jones. There was another prospect, I forget his name off the top of my head. He's a minor leaguer, along with Duncan Keith going back. I could have sworn Koskinen was going to go back in this trade the other way. I'm shocked that he didn't. So that's a little bit surprising for me. I think we all assumed Edmonton was going to be looking to add something on the back end. Just because Keith wanted to come to Canada.
Yeah. Maybe.
I don't think Edmonton should have bent over to make it happen. I know they were worried about losing Caleb Jones for nothing, but
I don't think you think they bent over to make this happen. And to me, trade was whatever.
I don't know. It is whatever, but I mean, they took on a lot of cap for a questionably replacement level player. I mean, if his name wasn't Duncan Keith and it was,
but maybe
Marcus,
they know a little bit more. Like maybe that locker room is lacking with Duncan, like the off the ice, like this with Duncan Keith can bring to your team. That team's just lost. And maybe.
But how do you know what Duncan Keith is bringing when you haven't been in the room with him?
I don't know the organization. I'm sure these people know a little bit more. If Duncan Keith's been around the league, I think those kind of rumors, like hardworking guys, like those rumors, they start to float around. You get an idea of what these people are like if they've been in a company for 10, 15 years, right?
Yeah, I just feel like they think that Duncan Keith's the type of guy that can still play the minutes and play the roles, and even if he gets upset, he can block some shots and slash some guys. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I think if that's what they're expecting, that's gonna end in disappointment.
It sounds like they've done that. It sounds like they've re-signed Larson. It sounds like they're bringing back Mike Smith, which would then lead to them buying out Koskinen. They re-signed Nugent Hopkins. It's much like the Leafs. They're doing moves. Yes, it's good. They're doing what they need to do, but like they're not improving. They failed last year, and they're not getting any better. So like it's, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not super familiar with how their cap situation is, but I don't know what to really see about Edmonton moving forward.
Yeah, it's a little bit questionable, but we'll see.
Hmm.
The next thing, which relates kind of a little bit to expansion, would be the buyouts.
Yeah,
Zach Parise, Ryan Suter on the same team, and then also Keith Yandle, the three of them.
yeah, no,
So
surprising to me.
it wasn't to me. He
No.
had a full no move clause. It was no
Hmm.
trade, but there was only like 16 no trade, and he
And that
wasn't going
seems
there.
and that seems to be the common theme amongst all these buyouts leading into expansion is if you had no move clause and we need that spot to protect someone of actual value.
The couple options you have, the stuff you're getting back is probably stuff you like worse than what you're getting anyways. So if it can't work, just buy them out and cut your losses, move forward.
Yep.
Although that being said, Minnesota, they've got 2 years of cap relief, but then 3 years, 3, 4, and 5 between the two of them. I think it's 12 or 13 and then 14 or 16 million against the cap between the two of them.
Oh, it's
So they
that
get
much? I
cap
thought it was
relief.
pretty close to even at that point. But
No,
with
I
no
think it's like,
players,
I'm
which
guessing here, but I think it's like 6, 6, 12, 16,
mhm.
16, 4, 3,
I didn't
whatever.
take a deep look at the numbers. I did look at what it was per year, and to me, it made sense. Like at the end of the day, it
Hmm.
seemed like a move that they had to make. They do realize they're going to get punished, but this might be their window at this point, really, to really make a
Hmm.
push.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think that there's obviously been the flurry of buyouts and moves and trades and whatnot. I think that you're going to see Seattle kind of take the spotlight over the next week or so.
Hmm.
But then I think that you're going to see a bunch of more flurry of moves just before the second buyout window and free agency and whatnot. I think it's still yet to be an active thing. I know that, remember, I told you my prediction was that $1 billion worth of contracts would be moved or bought out, basically everything outside of expansion. So what would be moved, what would be bought out, what would be traded, both individually for next year, but also how many years and total cap. And when I have it currently added up here is 305 million,
Wow,
72 years, and 73.54 million next year.
all of
So
that bought
since
out.
that has been total for buyouts, trades, and contract
Okay,
signings
that I
from
just
July
in
1st
the
until
years
now.
is just for the buyout portion though,
What's
or
that?
like.
No, that's in terms of how many years worth of
Oh,
contracts is
okay,
traded.
that's still a lot of years. That's a
So
whole human being worth of life.
you talk about how the NHL isn't making money and how they're struggling and stuff like that, but then you see $1 billion being exchanged and moved around and taken on or added or given out or whatever, and then you're kind of like, okay, what's not quite adding up here? But um, yeah.
Wow. I'd be interested. I don't know the number of what all if you add up all their contracts across the league, what that would be. I guess just whatever the max is times 30 teams would a little bit less, but
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
Still, we're not even to free agency yet,
I
and
think
we
I
haven't even
think your
talked
billion
about
dollars
trades.
starting to look good.
I think I mean, we're 30% there, right? We're
And if you have a free agent signing, does that go into that billion? Oh yeah, plus
there
years.
might be yeah, there's going to be a lot of term. I mean, even if there's a bunch of deals that we get surprised on that are 3 or 4 years instead of the 6 or 7, just to get through this, period of stuff, then we'll
Well, the
see where it ends up.
Landeskog contract alone is going to give you like 100 mil.
Well, it's going
Not
to give you
quite, but
probably 6 years, 6 years times probably
50 mil.
7.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool,
But
cool,
yeah,
cool.
before we actually get into the full drafting of expansion, let's take a quick break.
Oh, wait. Cool.
All right, so
Let's jump back into it then. Do you want to like try? Do you just want to like go down each team and kind of see? We can talk about what kind of things they went, what happened, where we think,
I
or what.
I think
Just
we
keep
should do it
rolling.
by position. I think we should start with the goalies we took,
Okay.
and then I think we should go to like the big name.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. Why we should
Okay.
do it that way is because we can talk about if they made some trades because there's some other trades we haven't talked about what they kind of did leading up to the thing, and B, I can kind of like in theory, I can put timestamps on if like people are interested and just want to hear about a specific team, they can go to that team.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, like, I think let's just do it in alphabetical order because I think that's always the most fun. Just starting at the top with the Anahiem Ducks. So, with these guys, I'll just pull this up for myself. They had a couple of interesting guys exposed that I thought, at least. At the end of the day, after looking at the numbers of where each thing would be, I figured a D was going to be coming out of Anaheim.
I wasn't sure on this one, to be honest. And Anaheim, when I was completing my list, I was trying to be as close within the actual legal confines of drafting a team as possible without just being silly and just being like, oh, this is the best player available. I'll just take him, ignoring his contract kind of thing. That being said, some contracts that I will talk about taking, I do talk about taking with the intent of flipping, but we'll get to that individual basis. But Anaheim was a team that I just wasn't quite sure which way I was going to go, so I actually skipped them. And then once I kind of picked a lot of my other team, I came back. And the two guys for me that I debated between was Adam Henrique up front.
Yep.
And then Hayden Fleury on the back end.
Nailed it. Those are the same two I went. I think Seattle's going to have they're going to be chasing centers and defensemen as valuable picks. So to me, those were the two most valuable in that situation. I don't know a lot about this Brendan Goulet guy. I don't know if he maybe is a better option on D. But
he's
to me,
another
it's a
young guy.
toss-up,
Larson's
right?
another young guy that Anaheim likes.
Exactly.
But I think Anaheim is also thinking about it as well, that back when Vegas drafted, they tried so hard to protect all their young defensemen that they let Theodore go, another young defenseman, than the other guys that they didn't want to lose in Lindholm and Vatanen, and Vatanen's no longer with them, and Lindholm has been injured. So, like, I think that in their mind, they're kind of like, we're not going to make that mistake again, so they're going to do anything they can to avoid that. So I wouldn't even be surprised if Anaheim actually, especially with all the picks and prospects they have, I wouldn't be surprised if they make a side deal where Seattle actually takes Henrique and leaves all their young defensemen to Anaheim, and they get that asset. So I do think that's the way. I think that's the way that it's going to end up rolling.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that those kind of deals can still go down. Like, take this guy and we'll also give you this. Yeah, that could be good.
Yeah, I forgot about that, and that was clarified actually today that from now until the actual expansion draft, Seattle has negotiating rights.
So they can
agents and
free agents.
Teams.
That's exactly what I was going to throw in. So they could be on. Well, I shouldn't even say could. They're on the phone right now with Landeskog, and they're on the phone right now with every other unrestricted free agent. Be like, what's it going to take? What's it going to take?
Yeah, they want to know the numbers to know. Okay, are you possible? Are you?
If we pay up, would you come here? Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, if it's just not possible, if they say, yeah, no, I'm not signing with you, they know, okay, that's not the way to go.
Do you know the answer to this? Like, if they kind of reach an agreement, can they sign the contract, or do they have to pick the unrestricted free agent from the team? And because I don't know how that part would work. Vegas, I don't think had that situation.
They can agree to a contract, but I don't think the contract can be made official.
Okay.
So, like, the team or the players' agents could release saying, hey, yeah, or agree and say, hey, yeah, combined release, we both are saying this has happened. However, it's not going to be actually official until X date.
Yeah.
That could happen, I believe, but I don't think they can actually, like, sign and date and make it official until then. But they could still have that, be the case, and then fly Drieger out to the actual ceremony of...
that's what... Because we'll get to him, but that's what kind of makes me... not understand what's going on, because Drieger seems all but certain to be going to Seattle, but he's a UFA, but right? So,
to be honest, I've heard that for like 6 months that like they were watching him from the start, and then when he continued to show that second year strong play, I as a Leaf fan wanted him in Toronto really badly. He was in the top 3 from my targets that I'd like, and he got the exact contract that I would have given him. But I think that he is probably in a better position where he is now. Going to Seattle, being kind of one of those guys for the new franchise, he really can be a guy, if he plays good hockey, he could really make a name for himself and become a fan favorite depending on the other situation with goals, right?
Definitely.
Goalies. So.
All right, let's move on to Arizona. They were not quiet leading up to uh, the ceremony. Like they were involved in some trades. They got a bunch of assets for taking on a huge Andrew Ladd contract from the Islanders. So picked up a few.
And they also plan for him to play. They want him to play.
I did not hear that. Wow.
Yeah. They've made plans on him to play on the Major League roster or the NHL roster.
They're going to make him work for his dollars.
I guess so.
They were they involved in another trade? I feel like they were.
With San Jose Sharks for Coronar, or Coronash, as some people have been saying.
Yeah, so I guess they decided they're going to run with Kemper at this point. Still options. I don't think that's
true.
You don't think that's true? You think he's on the block after?
I think that Arizona realizes that, okay, Ekman Larson needs to go. Connor Garland doesn't want to be here anymore. Some of our young guys in Christian Fischer and Dvorak and stuff like that have kind of stalled out a little bit. We've stalled out a little bit. Aiden Hill, who we thought was our kind of younger guy moving forward, we just moved on from, and he showed he couldn't really take that step forward. Kemper's got 1 year left. If you're a garbage team and Kemper comes back and has a great year, but on a garbage team, he's still not the most attractive. You can, but he's not the most attractive. Oh, okay. I guess my point is that if you trade him now, you get more than if you do, even if he's having a good year on a bad team next season.
You don't think there's a little bit of concern from teams trading for him with his injuries past?
I don't. I think a lot of teams are looking at him as a depreciated asset, or what's the right term, an asset where he's undervalued. Like he's going to bounce back. I think a lot of teams think he's going to bounce back, and it sounds like the two teams that are currently trying to get him are Colorado and Toronto. And I think he's both fantastic fits on both of those teams.
It's a lot of speculation right now. Colorado and Grubauer have a deal.
I don't agree. I don't believe it.
Because
why hasn't it happened by now?
I guess they're waiting for after the. I don't know. That's
Their
a good question.
They don't have other goalies worth protecting. They should, if that's the case, they should have just signed him and protected the goalie. Like they don't have another goalie that would have been worth Hunter Mishka. You're really going to protect him? You think that Seattle's going to take Hunter Mishka?
Very well, you could be right. I maybe the ownership is just trying to leverage their position. I
guess
maybe we'll see.
I don't know.
Like you said, if better options come along, maybe they're waiting.
Where I was going with that thought though originally was that if you're the management group and with Aiden Hill being moved on and whatever, and you have Kemper. If Kemper has an unreal season and Kemper is playing well, I'm not a believer in the camp that he will resign. So he's either moved now or at the deadline. And if you're Arizona who's struggling and they don't really want to spend assets, what better time to move off a goalie who has a 12-month window with you, if not less, and get a goalie with a bit more term, whether it's 2-3 years. Because they really have no goalies right now, right?
Yeah.
Like with moving Aiden Hill and stuff, they have Coronar, but he played a good few games with San Jose and he was in the ECHL, so who knows? I mean, there's the Binningtons, but yeah. So I mean, basically my point is there's a wide open spot for them to turn a 1-year Kemper into a 2, 3, 4 year signed goalie off a team that maybe wants to move off of him. I don't know which goalie that is, but
maybe we'll get to that where the Kraken, they get 5 goalies and they just flip one to Arizona.
Maybe like a Vanacek from Washington. He could be a
there's I guess that Arizona could be on the phone with them and be like, hey, take this goalie for us and we'll do this trade.
Well, now that they know the list, they can call around and say, hey, those 7 teams that have goalie openings, we could theoretically take goalie X. So, if we did take goalie X, what would you pay? And then create that little battle between now and then and be like, hey, is it worth to take this guy or that guy? Do we want the young defenseman or do we want to take the goalie that we flip for pick and a young defenseman?
Yeah.
Right? So there'll be things to evaluate.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Boston.
I was going to say, that being said, who was the guy you took for Arizona?
Oh, yeah. I had Christian Fischer. It's one of those situations I wasn't totally sure. It could be a defenseman. It's one of those spots. Christian Fischer is just the biggest name on the team that had the most upside to me. So they're gonna need some forwards. I felt like forwards were the hardest to like get to the minimum in a way with like a rosterable decent team. So that's why I picked him.
Yeah.
Is that who you had?
Yep. Same guy for me. Same reasons as well.
All right, Boston. This one was tough for me. They were not a whole lot going on. They're trying to deal with Taylor Hall, of course, but that's not going to happen before all this going on. I think at the end of the day, from what I understand and from what I read, it's expected that a defenseman is coming out of Boston. I don't know really a whole much about the exposed defenseman, but apparently that's where the value is going to lie. So I tend to agree with the experts on this one. I don't have a read of the situation really on myself.
See, I actually went with a forward out of Boston. That's because I have a enjoyment level for watching this particular player play how he plays.
Okay.
And that is Nick Ritchie.
Okay.
From Anaheim before, back in the day, traded over.
See, I think like with a Nick Ritchie situation, like in this particular situation, I think this is going to come up more than once. But like, do you take someone that is like they're a good piece to have on your roster? Sure. Like if you're going to dress someone,
yeah, but he's such a Boston player. Like
Yeah.
Boston acquired him because he's a Boston player, and then they acquired Kasha, who hasn't played well. Like here, this is where I thought you're going to say where we might say it again, or say it a few times. Boston could be another team that says here's a young defenseman and another asset and a pick. Stay away from Richie. Stay away from this other young defenseman.
I was going this way. I was thinking like this is more of a situation where Richie might be the best player to have on your roster next year. But there might be a player on that list that will garner more value long term for your team.
I'm not as concerned about that because
I think
as of right now we don't know. Yeah, but as of right now we don't know what the AHL schedule truly is going to look like because we have to remember the AHL is a somewhat independent league. And I mean, last year, for example, they just decided, you know what, each of the four divisions, you decide if you want playoffs. And then 3 of the 4 said, no playoffs. Let's just call it an end of the season. And one division decided to have their own mini playoff series. So, like, they're independent. A lot of the teams are not owned by the big league club, even though they have players coming down from the big league club. Like, there's not many clubs like Toronto or these other teams who own both teams and even the ECHL teams. So, I mean, yeah. So we'll see with that.
We'll see with that one for sure. Let's move along. Buffalo Sabres. I went to my analyst on this one, the Buffalo Sabres analyst, before the lists came out. He was
Jesse.
Yeah, Mr. Jesse. Shout out to him. Before the lists come out, he was saying if they protect Ristolainen over Borjan, they're out of their minds. So I'm gonna just be like, okay, he must know more than I know about this situation, and that's who the Kraken are gonna take is Borjan or Will Borjan.
See, I think that Buffalo is going to do something cray.
Before?
I think that Buffalo is going to pay out of the nose and the absolute nose, and including in that trade, I think that Seattle and Buffalo will swap first and second overall. And that's for them to take on the contract of Jeff Skinner. And I think Seattle will take on Jeff Skinner. They'll swap 1 and 2, and then Buffalo will also give a couple more assets, probably 3 more assets. There's probably going to be one more asset also going the other way, but it's going to be probably like
that could be a good move.
4 for 2 trade.
Could be a good move.
And I think it would satisfy both because then it cleans that palette for Buffalo. They were originally talking, I know this for a fact, they were originally talking about trying to get Okposo, his contract off the books. I don't remember how much time is left on that.
I could tell you real fast.
Yeah.
Keep going.
But yeah, so to me, I thought Jeff Skinner was the logical guy. And to be honest, if I'm
2 years.
Seattle, 2 years. So if I'm Seattle, I honestly take Skinner regardless. I'm not gonna lie.
It's a big contract, though.
It is, but I feel like a guy like that coming into a place that's like, you know, Seattle, it's new. I feel like, you know, the fans in that area are very I don't want to say hipster because that's not a fair comment, but like new age
Yeah, they're not going to
or
really
like
care about a $9 million contract on their
or that he's
newly
5 foot
acquired.
8,
Yeah.
or that he skates weird, or that he likes to shoot the puck high, or like these little things that have irritated people over the time, right? Like I
Yeah.
feel like he's the type of guy that would just fit in that role. Um, but I would position myself as be like, no, I don't want that contract. Like that contract's terrible. Like you, like yes, I'm open to you to taking him on, but like you're gonna have to pay a lot.
Yeah.
But
That'd
like,
be that'd
let's
be
make it
interesting.
work.
Yeah, for sure.
That's how I'd approach it. So,
Wow.
and
I
plus,
did,
I don't know anything about Borgen, so
yeah, I just
I
went
don't
to
know.
we'll see. Analyst versus crazy option, maybe. We'll see.
To be honest, it's hard a lot of times to ask fans about prospects
It's
because
true.
every
They
single prospect's
overrate.
like the next best thing.
Yep.
And like when you look at the prospect compared to the prospect pool of everyone that's available, to
Yeah, where
me
does
he's just
yeah,
another guy,
Yeah,
right?
sure,
But who
sure.
knows? I could
And
be
they
completely
definitely
off the
could
mark,
get a lot of assets, like you said, if they took Skinner on. And he's
right?
not, that wouldn't be the
So,
worst spot. All right.
and imagine Owen Power if you
Yeah.
swap picks. I mean, if Buffalo wants Bernier anyways, which is sounds what they want, and Power's trying to negotiate out of being drafted by Buffalo, why not just make everything work for everybody and satisfy all the parties involved?
Yeah.
You're really getting the guy you want anyways. You're moving back. You get Skinner off the books. Then you go to free agency and maybe you offer the bank to a guy like Landeskog. And then you turn Skinner into Landeskog. Yes, you give up assets, but then if you looked at, okay, I'm trading these assets and moving Skinner, if you replace Skinner for Landeskog in theory for that contract, you're trading
If
X
Skinner can
assets
get
for
9 million,
Landeskog.
shouldn't Landeskog be able to get that much? Yeah. Makes
He
sense.
should, yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying,
Yeah, for sure.
if you replace Skinner with Landeskog and it's just a trade straight up for those assets, you make that trade every day if you're a Buffalo Sabre fan or player,
Yeah.
right? I mean, who knows?
All right. Calgary Flames.
Calgary Flames, this is an easy one. Mark
Yeah.
Giordano.
Yeah, agreed. Not
He will
not too
be
much
the
else going
stud for
on
them.
off the ice at this point either.
Yeah, and this will be the official change of the guard for Calgary. And let me ask you just a quick step out of expansion for a sec. What are the Flames?
You're asking the guy that can never guess the Flames right. So
Touche, touche.
I have no idea.
I don't get it.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
I really don't get it.
There's something. We'll see.
They landed
So-
Markstrom, which made sense as like the base moving out, but then they gave Hamilton away for free because they were worrisome they weren't going to be able to re-sign him, but you didn't get a whole lot. Then you moved Fox away for nothing. Now
Yeah.
you're letting your captain and former guy that's been your
Staple.
horse on the blue line for a decade. You're letting him go. That guarantee he gets drafted. Up front, you've got Monahan, who you're basically trying to find anyone to can take him on. You have Gujo, who basically wants out.
Yeah,
Like
they have a lot
Kachuk
of they
is-
have a lot of work to do. We might be talking about them in the basement for a while. We'll see.
Then you have Suter, who came out of retirement to step behind the bench to try and coach them. Like, yeah, I don't know what's going on.
All right, let's talk about some more optimistic teams like Carolina Hurricanes then.
Carolina Hurricanes. This is another one for me where I kind of saw two options. I guess kind of like Anaheim, where it was like
Yep.
it's either one guy or the other guy. I went with Jake Bean on defense just because Carolina was one of those teams where I had two options.
Yep.
I passed them and circled back because I knew I could pick either, just
Exactly.
depending on what I needed to satisfy. I needed a defenseman in this case, so I
Yep.
went with Jake Bean.
Exactly.
But in actuality, I actually would prefer to have Nino Niederreiter.
Me too.
But I think that Seattle could probably negotiate some sort of trade where they take on Niederreiter and leave Jake Bean for Carolina, and it probably wouldn't cost them a whole ton.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. That's you basically nailed the head. That's how I approach Carolina.
Yeah.
Chicago Blackhawks. I know we had two different picks here.
You go first.
So I went with Adam Gaudette as being. So they just acquired him from the Canucks this offseason, I think, in a trade. And I now think they're going to lose him. I don't know. I think as a very good center, he never got the chance to play anything more than third line for the Canucks. Obviously, they had people ahead of him. But I think when you given an opportunity, he could be a solid third line for you. And center depth, I think, is a good asset to have. Centers aren't cheap. At the very least, he might garner a little more value down the road. Obviously, my other option was the one that you went with. Like, I would consider that. I just really coming into making my team, I valued centers the most.
Hmm. And that's fair. But I went with the other guy that you didn't mention. You mentioned, but or you referenced, but you didn't say the name. Nikita Zadorov,
Yep.
the giant physical defenseman. And for me, I'm actually, if I'm Seattle, I'm building my team. Like, yes, centers are important, forwards are important. But I'm kind of building my team as a goalie defense team. And I'm going to get the best forwards I can while I'm at it. But I also plan, if I'm Seattle, to do a lot of my tradings. Like, Vegas did a lot of their trading before they actually picked. I
Because
feel like
teams are
Seattle's going to do a
panicking.
lot of the
Yeah.
yeah. I feel like Seattle's going to do a lot of their trading after they get guys through expansion. So I feel like there's going to be probably 8, maybe even 10 guys that they take,
They could trade
but
it.
don't actually ever play a game for them.
It could be possible, yeah.
So I feel like not. I'm not saying it's a
Like the
Zadorov's
same
that
kind of
guy,
story.
but
Like Vegas, like they didn't do it quickly, but at the end of the day, they pretty much flipped almost their entire team at one point
and
or another.
Vegas actually quietly. I mean, just a couple of quick trades. Vegas quietly made some depth center moves. They already had what's his name, Carlson and Stevenson, but they also added Nolan Patrick and Brett Howden.
Yep.
So they added 2 NHL centermen, whether it's 3 or 2, somewhere in the middle there. But now they have depth throughout all of their center lines. So like that was a good little sneaky ad for them.
Yeah, they definitely are. They're definitely benefiting from not being able to part of this draft because they
Hmm.
would have to expose so many guys, and then at the same time, people want us. The reason they get Nolan Patrick in this situation is because they don't have to expose them.
Exactly. Yeah. So they basically got a guy who was former top pick that could be boom potential for them. So I think that we probably could be talking about these trades in a greater capacity kind of once the season starts, and I'm kind of excited to see how those guys kind of turn out. But back to Chicago, I just feel like Seattle has got to take defensemen, take all the defensemen you can, because in trades, defensemen seem to get more right now, especially when teams are struggling and losing defensemen in expansion and stuff. But I also feel like this Chicago could be another team who, like for me, it's hard to believe that you're going to give up anything if you know you're going to lose them. So like, if you traded something for him, albeit not as much as you think you would, I feel like they would already know and be like, "Hey, Seattle, if we trade for this guy, like, what's it going to cost so that we can keep him? Make sure we don't trade for him and you just take him anyways." So I feel like Chicago probably has a side deal where it's like, here's a third round pick and maybe a minor league player for you to take Zadorov and leave us
Maybe, maybe yeah.
everyone else. But we'll see.
All right, Avalanche.
Avalanche, I struggled with.
Me too, a little bit.
They might have been the hardest team for me. And they were one of the teams that I left until the end just to see kind of what position I needed.
Hmm.
I needed a defenseman, so I just picked one. And for me, I needed a defenseman that didn't get paid a lot of money. So I just picked the first defenseman that didn't make a lot of money, and that was Gilbert Dennis,
Okay.
Dennis Gilbert. See, I
Yeah.
can't even say his name right. So
For me, this is just the same thing. Like this is where you just see the difference in our approaches to the expansion. I went with JT Comfer as a center again, so just a little bit of a younger guy center, trying to build youth, trying to build centers. That was kind of my strategy, so that's what I went with. And again, you
that
went with the
makes
defenseman.
that makes entire sense. But I'm curious whether your team did. Yeah, I guess we did check that your team meets all the
Yep,
qualifications.
it does.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the other thing too, is it's not one of those just straight up replacement puzzles where it's just like one
Yeah.
for one. Once you start moving
Or
pieces,
actually, how
it
many
gets
D did you need to
variables.
make? I might not have made it. I might have been one short.
You need 9 defensemen, 14 forwards, and 3
Okay.
goalies.
Yeah, I don't have enough D, so that's one of my problems is that I need to find D. That might be a spot, but I think Comfer I valued higher than maybe some other forwards.
Yeah, so theoretically in your draft, you'd have to find one forward that, even if it's a forward that you're like, oh, this would be my,
Yeah,
fourth line winger, you got to pick a defenseman, even if you know he's shit and he'll never play for you, just to make sure you
yeah,
hit qualifications, right?
yeah,
Take the best defenseman you think out of the bunch and
yeah.
see what happens.
All right, Columbus.
But
I
yeah,
think Columbus for the most part. I think the jury's out. Everyone seems to be that
Domi.
Max Domi's going. Not too much else to go. So We've given Columbus too much airtime on this podcast in general, so.
I mean, with that being said, I'm a little bit worried for Columbus because I don't know if you heard about this or not, but there was a recent news article from Finland that came out about Patrick Laine. And he basically said, like, yeah, when I first got there, I really struggled and it was really frustrating. Then he admitted that there was a disagreement or an argument between him and one of the coaches. And individually, somebody confirmed that the coach that he got in the like heated argument with is the guy that the Columbus Blue Jackets just named as their head coach. And then I forget his name, but Laine basically said like he looks forward to building his career in Columbus, and that he wants to sign there and stick around and stuff like that. So like it's a little bit confusing, and it's also a little bit confusing that somebody that seems rather complacent seems like he's already getting complacent in Columbus when things didn't go well.
Yeah.
So it almost seems like he's looking for his big contract and then kind of just let things play out as opposed to going and getting it. And that seems like it's a bit of an attitude issue for me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm a little bit worried about that. But if you lose Domi, you've lost all these other guys. Seth Jones wants out. Tortorella, who's made your team's identity be their identity for a while. Foligno's going to Minnesota, it sounds like, not back to Columbus. So, like, Columbus might be one of those teams that just hits the doormats next year.
We'll see, yeah. We'll see.
I don't have very high expectations for them, but yeah.
We'll get to that in the predictions. Way in a couple pods from now. Dallas Stars.
You go first, because I've got.
I didn't know who to go. Who did I end up putting? I thought I put Bishop, but I just put a D. I didn't know who.
Oh, okay.
I just put D. I don't think they're. I'll let you do it, but I don't think Bishop is the take in here. But maybe.
I mean, for me right now, again, because Seattle can negotiate, if I'm Seattle, I'm calling around the league and just saying, like, hey, just reminder, Ben Bishop, yes, he was hurt, but he gets paid south of $5 million per season. And if Ben Bishop's on his game, and hey, you know what, we'll do an even favor. We'll eat, I think it's 5.997 or something like that. Yeah. So let's eat the 997, and we'll just give you a $5 million goalie, or actually it's 4.997, so it's just south of 5. So let's give you Bishop at $4 million for 3 years. What's Haley,
that worth?
What's that worth?
Yeah, that might be the best value they can get out of Dallas for sure.
Yeah. For sure, and then you can flip Bishop.
I need a D though by the end of this. So what I'd have to go deeper and see if getting what I could get in return for Bishop is more valuable than what I'd give up not having to take a D on a different team.
Yeah, and I don't want to skip something here because it's an important topic, but with the goalies, one of the goalies that we think might be taken could potentially have injury issues. And if he does have these injury issues and goes on long-term injury reserve, then a guy like Ben Bishop, if I can't get any teams to give me what I want now, then I would be willing to go with Bishop and Drieger. I mean, we got to remember Bishop's 6'7", Drieger's 6'5". You got those two big goalies. You play them for the first 30 games and you flip Bishop then. And I'm quite confident that Bishop will return to, if not quite the top elite form, that next tier down, which right now Freddie Anderson's going to get, 3 years times 5 probably, and that's more than Bishop's making. Yeah. So Bishop then becomes more attractive. Plus Bishop, to me, plays the puck much better. He's much better. Bishop, to me, is a top 5 puck handler in the NHL. So if you have a team that likes to engage defensively and move the puck with the goalie, it's a pretty important asset that's kind of hard to find along with the cap relief. So I think Bishop is worth a lot. So I think you take him and you flip him, whether it's now or during the season.
Okay, I can get on board with that. Red Wings. Detroit. I didn't know.
To be honest, does it matter? Yeah, they're another team I skipped because I just needed to figure out which position I needed to pick. And same thing, I picked the best defenseman that wasn't getting paid a lot of money that met qualifications, and that was Dennis Cholowski. Yeah. He had a few good games for Detroit. He has a pretty decent shot. He doesn't have the best skating skills laterally, so he does get subject to being beaten wide if he isn't paired with somebody else who also can skate. And I don't think he has top pairing potential or power play QB potential, anything like that. So like he's just another guy
Yeah.
that can play third pairing skater, average, whatever. So like whatever. You take
I
a
just
guy
went
that
with
fills a role.
Nikov, because that's the only name I even recognized.
Yeah.
To be honest, like Troy Stetcher I recognized obviously, but and I guess of note, the Detroit Red Wings did take on Nick Leddy too. They
Hmm.
added some defensive depth and helped the Islanders out. We can get to that when we get there. All right, Oilers.
I just wanted to say with Detroit, I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit could be potentially brought in from Seattle to potentially do some three-way moves. So like
Yeah.
if Seattle grabs anybody that has a 1 year term left, they could flip them through Detroit to eat money to get them even cheaper to somebody to open up your potential negotiating teams, right? I think Detroit's going to get involved on these little side deals all over the place.
Okay. Oilers.
Oilers. I took Dominic Cahoon.
Okay, I don't even know who that is.
He is a swinger who I want to say he was drafted by Pittsburgh, or he came up as a big guy in Pittsburgh. Like not a big guy, but like as a big name or as a name people like to talk about.
Okay.
He's kind of like a Connor Brown, little bit less responsible, but a little bit better shot. So like a third line winger, fourth line
Okay.
kind of
I just went with
two-way
Koskinen because
winger.
I didn't really know who else, and he's like, maybe I need a goalie. Who knows?
Yeah,
I don't know. That was one I wasn't sure on. But that's okay. The Oilers have their own
yeah.
problems to deal with. We talked about that already. What about Florida? We're going to the Panthers.
Panthers, I mean, this is where we were kind of referencing earlier. We're not quite sure exactly how it works because Drieger, it sounds like, has come to an agreement on a contract,
Yeah.
which the way that I read that is that he has been signed as a free agent. Like it's not, has nothing to do with expansion.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense.
but then there was a few people that were reporting and put their name attached saying that there's a deal in place between Florida and Seattle.
Okay.
And they confirmed that this deal in place does include Frank Vetrano. So that's what I think I know. What else is included in the trade? Who knows? But that being said, that makes Florida one of those teams that like, who knows who you're picking?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I took 6 goalies in expansion, but included in this pick is Drieger, which doesn't really count per se, right? Because if I'm taking whoever in a trade as agreement and leaving Drieger to go as a free agent, sorry, my coffee machine's buzzing.
All G.
But yeah, so that leaves me actually 5 goalies, right? Which is a little less insane.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
but yeah,
Makes sense.
LA.
LA, yeah. Sorry, I got someone peeking in my door there. Dinner must be.
Who did you pick there?
So I picked Andreas Athanasiou. I'm not certain. I'm not confident about that pick. I feel like this is a spot where a D man might be. There might be a D man that is valuable that I just don't know. Like Kale Clog. I don't. Maybe like Curtis
Kale Clegg.
McDermott. Yeah, whatever. Like these guys could be guys. Athanasiou. He's been bounced around the league. I don't know if he has a lot of value, but at that point is what I just picked him. But if they need a D, I could see a D coming out of there.
I see this as another potential for LA to be like, hey, who do you want? We kind of like that guy. What is it going to take for you to take the guy we like second most
I
and
don't know
just
if
kind of
teams are
satisfy
gonna
both needs?
be so keen to do that. So it's like in a way that a lot of teams gave up 3 players just to save one against Vegas. I think they learned their lesson.
But I guess my point is with Kale Clegg specifically, he has been brought along slowly by LA and he's been brought along the right way, which means he's played 2 years of professional hockey, which means now he's exposable. He
Which
qualifies for
makes
the
them
draft.
fucking
So
valuable.
and he hasn't been dealt. And LA is one of those teams who had other positions where they could have kept guys, or they have a lot of assets. Excuse me. So like if they really did like him, they would have the ability to either flip him around for other assets or pay up to make sure they don't take him.
Yeah.
So I feel like Athanasio is that guy who's got a high ceiling. Maybe he just needs a spark. Like he played pretty good last year in LA, and I think he's a good fit there.
Yeah.
But I think he's a good fit potentially in Seattle as well, getting a little bit inflated ice time and maybe being a trade asset for the following deadline.
All right. Minnesota Wild. I got Nick Bjugstad. I thought it was a valuable, there's a decent forward to take in a spot like this.
He only has 1 year signed.
Left?
Yeah. At $2 million.
Yeah, maybe not. See, I didn't look that deep on this one.
See, Bugstad's a mini boy. He took a discount to stay in mini, and he just re-signed. I feel like if Minnesota hadn't thought there was any chance he would have been dealt, they would have just left him as a free agent and waited till after expansion and then signed him. Then there's no risk of him actually being taken.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, having more people as targets to be taken is a valuable thing too. Like if you know, just having another $2 million forward there to kind of get eyes away from other guys could be valuable.
Could be, but for me, there's an obvious pick if you take all trades out, and that's Kaapo Kähkönen, because he had an unreal season last year.
Yeah.
I honestly don't get why Minnesota would protect Talbot.
I agree.
And not Kähkönen. Like, that to me screams like, okay, you just bought out Parise, you just bought out Suter, you just re-signed Eriksson Ek, you're trying to re-sign Fiala.
Maybe they just can't get Kähkönen wants too much money.
Maybe, but I feel like Minnesota probably said to Seattle, like, they're also division rivals too, so Seattle's not going to just help them out, right? So they're going to have to pay that. And I feel like
Minnesota's in the Central.
Oh, sorry. I thought that they were in the same division. But regardless, I'm sure that they'll have some sort of
like Kähkönen's going to be due money, right? Like that he's going into his last contract year here. He's getting paid $725.
Yeah,
it's going to be due money.
Like, if you're Seattle, you take him because he still can be sent to the minors without having to clear waivers. So if you do take him, there's your AHL goalie, even though he was good last year and probably shouldn't be in the AHL. But that's an element you also have to think about, right?
Also, a team could be looking for a nice backup for $725 this year. It'd be pretty good.
Or if they believe he's legit for under $1 million, you can get a lot for that asset, right? So like he's by far the best asset you can pluck off Minnesota.
I would rather him over. I didn't realize Bjugstad was 1 year, so I'm with you.
And Minnesota moved mountains so that they didn't have to expose Dumba with the 2 buyouts, right?
Yeah.
With everything being said, like, there's just no way I can see Mini not making sure they don't lose Kähkönen. And with them, where they could have just protected Kähkönen and exposed Talbot, it just screams that there's some sort of deal or agreement in place to me.
Makes sense.
It's probably somebody random.
All right, let's get this rolling here. Montreal Canadiens. This is probably one of the highlight ones of the whole thing. So Carey Price being exposed, also leaking out that, quote, he might have an injury that complicates things a little bit. But I still think they should take him at this point. So
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Price should be the one that's taken for sure. I mean, it sounds like the league's investigating them for shenanigans with the whole Carey Price and
Shea Weber
thing. And what's interesting that people have to remember, too, is that everyone's saying Shea Weber's going to retire. Shea Weber's going to retire. Well, if Shea Weber retires, his cap goes back to Nashville. And I can't remember the precedent of this deal. Who was it that retired? Was it Luongo? Yeah, Luongo. When he retired, his cap went back to Vancouver. Yeah. So, like, Montreal can really screw Nashville here if he actually did legitimately retire.
Yeah.
But there could have also been an agreement back in place saying that, like, you can't let him retire. Like, there's a handshake agreement or whatever. But that was also a different GM that made that deal, right? So who knows at this point if that still would be something you'd have to hold up technically, right, in the grand scheme of general management. But I don't know how you don't take Price.
Yeah, I don't know either.
It's Ben Sherrod or Carey Price, and I don't know how you don't take Price.
Yeah, me too. All right.
And I've also been saying Carey Price to Seattle for like 2 years now.
Yeah. You can go back to episode 3 of the podcast. I'm sure you mentioned it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it just makes sense. His wife's from there.
Yeah.
He's a BC boy. Seattle would be a natural rival for BC. I always thought maybe he would end up in Vancouver until Vancouver ended up getting Demko and drafting two young good goalies, actually three young good goalies they have coming through the pipeline. So I just don't think that's going to happen. So if you can't play there, what's the best team close to
Seattle.
that? If
Yep.
it's Seattle, right?
Yep.
So
Yep. All right,
he
Nashville.
could be Flurry. He could be Flurry 2.0 for
Yep.
what Flurry did for Vegas. Absolutely.
Nashville. They're interesting because they're the only team that protected 4D, which
Hmm.
made them only able to protect 3 forwards, which is such a weird rule to me. You either get 7 and 3 or you get 4 and 3. Like what?
No,
That's
so it's either seven forwards and three defense
yep.
or eight skaters.
Yeah, which
So
is
either 10 players or eight. It's because defense are valued higher, or
yeah.
they don't want people hoarding
So
defense.
so Nashville protected 5D after trading Ellis. So just insanity to me. I
Yeah.
guess part of the trade with Ellis, they brought in Cody Glass from Vegas, who is not eligible for the draft because he only had 1 year pro. So I guess that's what all that trade was about, bringing in an extra forward that can't be taken. So technically, they moved an asset that they would have had to protect and brought in a good asset that they don't have to protect. And instead, they're pulling the wild card, the only team to go 5D protection.
Yeah. And it's weird, and I think Nashville's just actually no. I was gonna say they're one of those teams with nobody, but who was it that you picked?
I picked Duchesne, but like
So
I don't know if Seattle bites on that.
I do. I absolutely picked Shane.
Yarn Croak was my other option.
Because with my philosophy of these guys I'm grabbing and trading, I'm trading these guys for other futures to round out my teams, my picks, and my minor league system. So like cap isn't a big deal for me at that point.
Yeah, I just know too that if you're bringing Duchesne in, you're expecting he's going to be there for a long time. Like
Yeah, but you also got to remember he will be given the ice time that he
yeah,
was given like back in the Columbus days, right? Where it's like you're the number one center probably. Him and Domi are going to fight over 1-2. So I
that's a
mean,
good point. He's going to get that. He's going to be number one. Yeah, yeah.
and not on a team like Nashville who expects defense out, right? He can actually probably play his style, and like a guy like him and Skinner, maybe him and Skinner could find some magic.
That'd be fun. That'd be fun. All right. Now, New Jersey Devils. I think we both have the same guy. I went with Andreas Johansson. PK Subban's
Johnson?
obviously
Andreas Janssen.
Johansson. Sorry.
Sorry, he's a former Leaf, so I have to get him right.
Okay. It's that guy. I didn't know.
Yeah.
PK Subban. Obviously, there's always talk around him. Not going to happen. I don't think.
No. New Jersey's gonna have to eat probably like 4 million because he's only got 1 year left at 9 mil. I think New Jersey either just keeps him and they've got Graves and they've got a couple other guys that they've already added.
Yep.
I think maybe you just keep him and see where it goes, or you eat now and you move him to a team that might like him more. Now.
Yeah, for sure. Islanders. They had a busy couple days. They moved Letty, made a bunch of cap space for themselves, cut it down to the wire where everyone's wondering they don't have enough eligible defensemen, and then they have a quick signing of Andy Green to a 1 year small contract to make them ready to go. This one was interesting. There's a lot of options to take from here. They're going to lose a decent player at the end of the day. I think they're hoping Josh Bailey or Eberle gets taken because they can at least revamp that via free agency. But from my research and stuff, it seems like a lot of people, and what I tend to lean towards now is Kiefer Bellows, new guy on my radar. He seems to be a young guy that might have some value and some sort of a future if the Kraken take him on, and that seems like the kind of player that an expansion team might want.
Yeah, I picked Eberle because I kind of overlooked him, but now that you say that, especially for the cheaper cap hit, same forward qualifications, I actually probably would leave Eberle because the other thing with the Islanders is they've experienced overage charges, much like the Montreal Canadiens. So they're not working with 81.5 cap next year. They're working with something that's going to be, muzzling that because of these overages. So I think you leave them in that. You don't try and help them out. You let them try and swim in that unless they really pay out the butt. And you take a good player. Kiefer Bellows, a young player that can play on your team.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to get out of this cap situation a little bit. They did make a lot of space for next year, 20 mil. Like they're getting ready to make some free agent moves. So don't help them out by giving them even more space and take a good player. All right, another New York team, the Rangers. I did not know where to go with this one. I think I ended up going with Gonthiar, Julian, but there wasn't a lot to...
Gauthier.
Yeah, Gauthier, there you go. Gonthiar. But not a lot of options coming from Rangers camp. D'Angelo's obviously available, but why do you bring that into a freshly expansion team? You don't.
I don't touch that.
Yeah.
No. And Julien Gauthier, what he's most known for really is his shooting. He's got a really good offensive shot now. He gets himself in good positions. So like he could be a guy that he is waiver eligible. So like you'd have to keep him on a position on your major league roster. But even as an extra forward. In and off the power play, he could be a guy worth kind of stashing. So,
all right,
but yeah, nothing crazy.
Yeah, Ottawa Senators, up and coming team. A lot of different options you could go with on this one. Honestly, there's four guys that probably spark some interest. So, might be one of the last teams that Kraken pick, and they're just pick a position that they need to fill. Really.
Mm-hmm. For me, I actually went with a goalie, and I went with Joey Decord.
Okay.
The reason I actually picked him is that, again, you're going to need goalies to play for your minor league system, right?
He's perfect.
So he's a guy that doesn't require waivers yet. He's only 24 years old with a bit of NHL experience, and a lot of people regard him as a really skilled young goalie, and it's between him and Gustafsson, who are there to be able to protect. So I mean, I grab him and I stash him in my AHL team and let him try and play for 1 year there to help me as like my third or fourth or maybe even fifth goalie.
Yeah, I actually like that option. I think I went with Josh Brown just as a defenseman, but just one of those situations I needed to fill at that point. But you make a lot of valid point. You're gonna need an AHL goalie. I didn't really plan for that particularly well.
Yeah. There's really only like 4 or 5 goalies league-wide that would be available to be taken that do qualify to be sent to the minor leagues without having to clear waivers. So really the pool to be able to pick from, unless you're already aware of either Europeans or pending free agencies or, college guys or something that, fills that role, I think that you obviously have to have the foresight to look at that.
All right, for sure. All right, Philadelphia Flyers. Let's keep this rolling. I went Shane Gostisbehere. I considered Voracek and Van Riemsdyk. Obviously, I just went with Gostisbehere. I think that I need some solid D, some top line people that can eat up minutes and have done it in the past. And he needs to change the scenery. He could very well. It's a boomer bust pick, and I think that's my gamble on this one. For
me, I'm not a Gostisbehere fan. I think that he's like a Tyson Barrie. He's a guy that's really another forward that plays D. He's not the greatest defensive guy. He's a bit of a liability out there, and he's at $4 to $5 million.
Yeah,
he was on the third pairing on a pretty poor defensive team last year.
That's a good point.
Playing, I think, with Haig or whatever. So like, I feel like if you go defense, yeah, sure, that's the way to go. If you go forward, it's one of Voracek or JVR. If it's me just picking, I pick JVR 1,000 times out of 1,000. But if Philadelphia is willing to pay me enough to take Voracek over JVR, then I would go that route too. So I think at the end of the day, it will be Voracek, especially because he voiced his displeasure and voiced that he didn't want to be there. However, there has been rumors, I know we're kind of jumping to St. Louis a little bit, about Tarasenko, but there's been rumors of him potentially being on the move, and the potential destination is Philly. So to me, I don't know if there's any connection between that move, or if maybe that would be a move to kind of keep Voracek happy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's which way to go that way, but it could be a sign of something that's going on there.
All right, Penguins. There's a couple picks you could go here. Casey DeSmith falls into kind of what we were talking about with Ottawa, have potential AHL goalie if you need one of those. But I guess
he requires waivers.
Yeah, he does require waivers. I was just about to throw that in there. So I don't know. I went with Brandon Tanev. It seems like that's probably where they're gonna go.
Great fit,
obviously, everyone knew Pittsburgh had exposed a couple decent guys. Zucker's there, Tanev's there. They're gonna lose someone. I think it's smart to take a forward from Pittsburgh in general because they got to play with Crosby and all that stuff. They usually generate some good forwards. They obviously did not want to expose Teddy Bluger. See a lot of potential in him, so they end up going with Tanev.
And I mean, you got to think too, if you look at Vegas and you want to make any kind of correlations to them and elements of teams and whatnot, they have Reeves and Carrier who are kind of their checkers, they're body throwers, they're enforcers, if you will. And I'm not saying Tanev is that, but he brings that element. He brings that kind of tenaciousness, that third line kind of in your face. I'll drop the gloves if you're in my weight class and piss me off.
He's definitely the highest value of that kind of style of player on the whole board. So
for sure, yeah. There's no one else really like him, and to not be able to get that element anywhere else and that to be available, I'd need Pittsburgh to pay a lot. And I think that's maybe why Pittsburgh gave him that much money, hoping that they would make Seattle shy away.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Cap hit isn't something that would make me shy away. So I think that's pretty much almost a slam dunk unless there's some sort of crazy trade. But I'm pretty sure that's it.
All right, we got the Sharks.
I struggled with this one.
Me too. I think I went with Matthew Nito as my pick. But, again, I struggled. Not a whole lot going for. Yeah, I went with Nito. I just think he's got a little bit of experience. I've seen his name floating around for a few years, so that's basically how I came up with that conclusion. I don't think at the end of the day any of the exposed people from the Sharks it's gonna be rough if they lose them. So
yeah, actually, I just changed my pick on the fly. I originally picked Ryan Donato, but I'm actually changing it to Curtis Gabriel. Because Curtis Gabriel is basically your Ryan Reeves, and then Tanev can be your carrier, and then you basically have those two
Dylan
elements.
Gabriel?
No, Curtis Gabriel.
Okay.
He was the guy last year that I believe it was drugs or maybe alcohol that he came back from, and he was a fighter.
Okay.
He came back. He had a couple big goals, a couple tips in front of the net, fought some guys. He had a little bit of a cult following a little bit at the end of the season.
Okay.
Kind of one of those guys, a little bit like Rich Clune, where he kind of rose from the ashes a little bit, physical guy. So, again, you can get that element to supplement or to have support on top of Tanev.
All right, and St. Louis Blues. I think the big news coming out of here, obviously, Vladimir Tarasenko being exposed. I think we have different opinions where you think they're going to take him. I think they're going to go a different route. I don't know if they want to eat up all that cap space on Tarasenko at this point. That's why I don't think they're going to go with them. I think they're going to go with a D, and I picked Dunn as my defenseman. I think when it comes to Seattle, that the cap space is just one of the most valuable parts of the expansion team, and to commit that much to a forward, I guess is he on his last year of his contract?
I think he has 2 years left.
Yeah, okay.
At 6-ish or something? I want to say it's like 6'8", 6'8".
7.5. So it's two years left. I don't know. I don't see the value that he brings to the team. He's probably expected to perform less than what a $7.5 million forward would take. If there's a lot of risk with his injuries, what's going on with his shoulder. I just think you could get more value by keeping the cap space open. Just in the future. That's my approach of why they wouldn't take Tarasenko.
See, to me, again, you have the ability to go over the cap in the offseason. So cap, you don't have to be at 81.5. You can go over. But we're also guessing because we don't know the answer to some of these questions. But Seattle will know. Seattle will be able to gauge the interest and be like, hey, if we were to take Tarasenko, he won't play a game for us, but what can we get if we did take him and flip him, or if we did take him and eat $1 million or $1.5 million maybe to get him down to 6? And then, I mean, if you're trading him 2 times 6, maybe you get a nice haul for him and then you get him and flip him around.
What's more valuable, having Tarasenko or having $6 million to help? Like, you could eat a contract, you could do all this other stuff.
I'm not understanding the question, sorry.
You either have Tarasenko as an asset to trade, or you have $6 million of cap space where you could sign a free agent and then trade him, or you could help maneuver.
You're assuming somebody wants to sign there, though, because there's 32
teams.
I
agree. But even just having $6 million in space helps you maneuver in trades. Like, teams always need...
If you're St. Louis and you lose Tarasenko and Schwartz in the same offseason, You just lost Pietrangelo. Binnington hasn't been as good lately. You aren't as attractive as some other places. You had a guy like Maroon who was like the guy there, and he left. Braden Shen hasn't been quite as good lately. Like, I don't know. I just feel like St. Louis isn't very sexy. It isn't very attractive. They won the cup, and
Fair
they're
enough.
not that kind of place to be. So I don't know. I just feel like, yes, the 6 million space is attractive,
I meant for
but I feel
Seattle to
like
have the 6 million space instead of taking Tarasenko.
but they take Tarasenko and flip him
Yeah,
for
I
picks and
understand,
prospects.
but what's more valuable, 7.5 Tarasenko or an asset plus 6 million cap space? In this world right now, I think it's the asset and 6 million cap space. That's why I didn't go Tarasenko.
Yeah, yeah. But again, if I'd want to know, like in
Yeah,
between
of
now
course.
and the deadline, I'd want to know. Like I don't
And
want to
they're
take
definitely asking
Tarasenko
that.
and then find out, oh, nobody wants to trade for him now. Now I'm
And he
screwed.
can't play.
Exactly. I'd never get caught in that situation. But now that since they know that information and we don't,
Yeah.
then that would impact their. If you are afraid or if you can't flip them, then Vince Dunn is the easy pick for sure.
Yep. All right. Tampa Bay Lightning. They had to expose quite a few forwards here. That pretty valuable. You probably looked at it a little bit deeper than me. I just tried to pick the name I would want on my team. I didn't really look at their contracts and how they fit in too much. So I went with Yanni Gord. That was my pick.
Yeah, there was a lot of good players, and like I know Tampa was trying to find a way for Seattle to take some guys off their hands and whatnot. But I think Tampa Bay now at this point is kind of like, okay, we're gonna lose somebody. There's a lot of good options on both sides for forwards and defense. But Cal Foote for me, Cal Foote is a guy that I'm a big fan of. I think that. I mean, he's a dual citizen, not that it makes any difference really, but he's one of those shooting defensemen. Big name for a prospect, really. Played for the Canadian juniors. He's only 22, and he's already played 2 years of pro.
Okay,
So, like,
yeah, I like him already too.
Yeah, so like
There's a lot of good.
Seems like a nice
It's
pick.
crazy that I guess it's the Stanley Cup champion, right? They should have some to
Right.
expose some good.
They've had
players.
him coming along slowly and properly, but now he's exposed because of it. So they may have groomed him for somebody else's benefit. And if I'm debating, really good forward or maybe a good winger versus defense, obviously I'm taking that good high ceiling defense every day.
Yeah.
So
All right.
that's where I went with
Let's
that.
move it on to your Toronto Maple Leafs.
Can we come back to the Leafs?
All right.
Do that
fine.
last.
We can do that last. All right. Let's do
so
the
Canucks.
Canucks. I didn't think there was a whole lot to go here. I went with Holtby, but yeah, I just went with Holtby.
Yeah. That's what I thought, but then once I got down to the cap, I was a little bit too high over the cap.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the actual limit was. I was trying to find that before we recorded. I think it's 10%, which if that was the case, then I couldn't take Holtby out of how I designed my team.
Yeah.
For both position
not gonna be
eligibility and for money.
It wouldn't surprise me if Holtby's not touched at all, just because of that very reason. I don't know where they're going to go on that. Washington Capitals. I went with Justin Schultz. I think he had a pretty decent turnaround season. He always decent. He was decent in Pittsburgh at times, and I just think you need some top defensemen on your team. Again, he's not like your stay-at-home defenseman type, but I think you can get some bang for your buck there off of him.
I mean, for me, I actually went with Vanacek just because after seeing what he did last year when Samsonov was in and out of the lineup, he showed that he has potential to be a better young goalie. And I think he's actually the key to a lot of what's going on, which is why I want to circle back to the Leafs. I think he's actually a key component, not for the Leafs, but to free up other positions for other teams to make deals with the Leafs and whatnot. And obviously it's not, all for the Leafs and whatever, but I think you take Vanacek and then you flip him. He's a young goalie. He's getting paid nothing. He showed he can play in the NHL. If with my team already having Bishop and Price and Drieger, I don't need to take a chance on a guy like that. But knowing what kind of value he has around the league, I take him and then I flip him. In my situation, which I referenced before, Darcy Kemper. I think that Arizona is going to look at moving Darcy Kemper because he's one of their assets. They're running hard to get assets and whatnot. But Vanacek's the type of guy that you could flip to Arizona who has potential to play for them 2-3 years.
That's a good
And
point.
you could probably get something for it. So
Probably a defenseman that's more valuable than Schultz.
probably, right? Maybe.
Yeah,
right?
who knows? Yeah, that's a good call.
Who knows? Who knows?
All right, Winnipeg Jets. I went with Mason Appleton. At first, I had someone different. I just had a D. I just wrote the word D. The more I looked at it, the more I turned on Appleton a little bit. Seems like a young forward that has some value. Played pretty good for the Jets last year. So that's who I went with.
Yeah, I needed a defenseman to meet qualifications, so I went DeMello. But I wanted to go Appleton just because he's a forward with a little bit better potential. They have a couple young guys that I wouldn't mind taking chances on. But that being said, it didn't really matter to me who got picked from Winnipeg. So
all right, take it away. Last team.
I was gonna say they also have Mikel Burden, who's a young goalie. I forgot to check and see if he qualifies for waivers. If that's the case, then I might take him too. But we'll see.
Okay, yeah, I don't know.
With the Leafs, yeah. So this whole thing is interesting for me, just because I think there's a lot of moving parts with the Leafs. Obviously, they picked up McCann the other day for pretty cheap, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, okay, well that means that Kerfoot's gone." I don't know if that's actually truth or not, or whether or not Seattle's just going to take Kerfoot. The benefit to Kerfoot's deal and why a lot of people think he's going to be taken is that his cap limit is 3.5. He gets a bonus, but he also gets paid significantly less than that. So his cap hit is like double what actual money is paid out. So to a team like Arizona, high cap, low salary is a plus, right? So they only have to pay half of the cap, but it gets their cap floor up higher without having to take on dead contracts like Marian Gaborik or these other things, right? So a guy like Kerfoot's super valuable to Arizona, and I do think that there's a deal to be made where Kerfoot goes to Arizona, and maybe Seattle takes Vanacek and moves him to Arizona, and then Kemper goes through Seattle to Toronto, and then Seattle takes either Dermott or McCann. So I think the trade for McCann was to make sure that, okay, Seattle, you pick one of the two forwards, and Arizona, you get the other of the two forwards, and we get our goalie, and you get to pick somebody else through expansion. Is basically how I see it. Probably Dermott.
Okay.
And maybe Dermott gets flipped through Seattle to Arizona as part of that deal.
So you think there's more than just a pick going on here? You think there's...
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's a huge deal to be made. There's also a couple other guys in Arizona that I think the Leafs could potentially be linked to, and that would be Connor Garland. And I think there's a couple other guys on the Leafs that they could potentially ship off, like a Pierre Engvall or an Ilya Mikheyev.
Yeah.
So I think there's like 3 or 4 moving pieces here between Seattle, Arizona, and Toronto. I wouldn't be surprised if you see like 3 or 4 or 5 little kind of, this expansion into that trade or this trade for swapping that, and maybe, the Leafs trade to Seattle and trade out of the second round for a third and a fourth, because Leafs don't have any picks, right? Leafs only have 3 picks coming up this draft.
Okay.
I want to guess off the top of my head it's second round, 4th round, and 6th round, or maybe 2, 5, and 6, something like that. So I would not be shocked at all if the Leafs are just trying to trade back as much as possible. So I wouldn't be surprised. And also, Leafs, you can carry 50 contracts, and they have a lot of openings. So they have a lot of spaces to just take on rookies or guys who maybe just want an opportunity. So I think that you could see a situation there where teams that are unhappy with contracts or whatever, Leafs pick them up for cheap and also trade back in the draft at the same time to try and amalgamate more picks. So I think there's all these different things going on, and it's not going to look like one trade. But if we do look back afterwards and kind of make it into one big trade, I think it's basically going to be a 3-way trade between Seattle, Arizona, and Toronto.
It's going to be exciting next couple of days, seeing all this stuff go down, what's going to come up. We're obviously going to be way off the mark on a couple things, but we're going to nail the head on a couple things too. So that's going to be it's going to be good.
48 hours.
48 hours
till we know.
And we'll be there we'll have to do another pod after the draft, after the expansion draft, and
free agency, and then we're going to have to do a teaser kind of whatever pool for Back for Clef Bombs.
Yeah.
Start the Clef Bombs show back up and get into the draft and all that.
Man, the Clef Bombs. Okay, sounds good.
Feels like forever, eh?
Yeah, it does. It does. Anything else you want to touch on before we go? I think.
Nah, man. Enjoy your dinner.
All right, sounds good. I will.
All right, take it easy.
All right, take care. Bye.
Yeah.